Northern California, the Tiny Rascal Gang is the most recognized Southeast Asian street gang you can find committing all sorts of illegal activities and crimes. Initially, most of their activities and presence were limited to Long Beach area of the state, but they've since built a strong foothold in Fresno and have slowly but surely penetrated Modesto, Stockton, Sacramento, San Diego, San Bernardino, and Orange County, all areas within Northern California. So, how did this takeover happen? Well, it came about due to several factors, some of which might surprise you. In this video, we will break down each one and provide insight into the gang's current situation. To understand how the Tiny Rascal Gang came to take over Northern California, we first have to trace back how they were formed. Since the gang is a Southeast Asian gang, it's already clear that its members weren't Americans born to American parents. Rather, they were either immigrants who moved to the country or children of those immigrants. The latter was what led to the formation of the Tiny Rascal Gang, and it may surprise you to know that they weren't initially about building a life of crime. It all began with the fall of Saigon in 1975, which forced many displaced Cambodian citizens to move to America as refugees. The majority of them arrived in California, with Long Beach being their preferred choice, and they soon started trying to rebuild their lives in this new place. But as with many refugee groups, language barriers and ethnicity isolated Cambodians from mainstream society, often leading to unpleasant situations. Although the Cambodian refugees tried to endure the discrimination, their children felt differently. In an effort to end the prejudice, they began adopting Western culture, hoping it would help them gain acceptance among the general youth population. However, their actions did not sit well with their parents, as they often conflicted with many traditional Cambodian customs and family philosophies. This led to the parents putting more pressure on their children to adhere to these customs. Unsurprisingly, as with most situations of this nature, the parents' actions backfired. The more they pressured their children, the more some Cambodian youth began to feel resentment toward their families and certain aspects of their culture. This resentment only grew stronger as Western influence continued to increase with each passing day in the country. Ultimately, those Cambodian youths who had reached their breaking point decided that the best thing to do was to run away from their families and live on the streets. By doing so, they became exposed to other criminal elements and street gangs that were already active at the time. Over time, these youths began banding together to protect themselves from being victimized by these criminal groups. But then something changed. They realized that with their larger numbers, they were stronger and more formidable. Additionally, they didn't face language or cultural barriers since they all shared the same background. Soon, these youths went from being the aggressor to the victim, using their newfound power to make money on the streets and survive. It was within this context that the Tiny Rascal Gang originated. For a while, they weren't considered a strong contender in terms of crime by the police. However, that changed in October 1989 when a truckload of Tiny Rascal Gang members pulled alongside a car full of Hispanics, many of whom were from the East Side Longos Gang. The encounter took place near Anaheim and Cherry Streets in Long Beach, an area claimed by both groups. The two exchanged insults, which escalated with rude gestures, leading the Tiny Rascal Gang members to pull out handguns and start shooting at their rivals. After this incident, local police in California formally recognized the Tiny Rascal Gang as a legitimate street gang, on par with many others that were active at the time. Perhaps if the police had known what the future held for the Tiny Rascal Gang, they would have done everything in their power to disband the gang at that time. Unfortunately, they saw it as just another gang they had to contend with and didn't put any special focus on them at the time. By the time law enforcement realized that the Tiny Rascal Gang was not like other street gangs, it was already too late. The gang had already spread across Northern California. This expansion was due to their unique and aggressive approach to claiming turf. It begins with the gang identifying an area they want to dominate. They would then attempt to intimidate rival gangs through threats of violence, including warnings that they were willing to kill to take control. However, these threats alone rarely worked at first. To prove they were serious, the Tiny Rascal Gang would carry out targeted killings of high-ranking members of the rival gang controlling the area. Once enough key figures in the rival gang had been eliminated, the remaining members would feel pressured to retreat from the area. The Tiny Rascal Gang would then quickly establish a structured presence by placing their own foot soldiers in the area to either continue the illicit activities already going on within the vicinity or bring in their own new ideas. These foot soldiers were closely supervised by a high-ranking gang member who ensured the gang's rules and operations were fully enforced. Interestingly, the Tiny Rascal Gang turf claiming strategy couldn't have worked without a second factor. Unlike other gangs, the Tiny Rascal Gang is very mobile, moving in small groups across the state or even to other states. This was something new for these other street gangs. Normally, gangs focus on either moving around or staying in one area, but not both. By doing both, the Tiny Rascal Gang was able to quickly spread their influence to places like Fresno and beyond, even faster than gangs that came before and after them. Additionally, as much as the Tiny Rascal Gang moved around and claimed turfs, they were also skilled at growing their membership. The method they used to recruit members was borrowed from the Hispanic gangs that many of their members grew up around, but adapted to fit their needs. One common way to become a member is to be walked in. This means that if you are well liked and have a history of supporting the gang, especially by participating in criminal activities with other members, the gang will recognize you as an official member. It's not uncommon for one or more Tiny Rascal Gang members to act as sponsors, especially if they were crime partners. Another method is the jump-in. For this, a prospective member has to fight 2 or 3 gang members for a set amount of time. The fight is symbolic and meant to test whether the person has the heart, attitude, and courage to back up the gang. How well they perform during the fight determines their level of fortitude. The recruitment process for females in the Tiny Rascal Gang follows a similar pattern to the one used for males, but with some notable differences. While many females are walked in, most shy away from the jump-in method, considering it too violent for them. As a result, a different recruitment method known as sexed-in emerged. In this case, the prospective female member must engage in sexual acts with a number of gang members to be officially recognized as a member. The number of sexual partners is determined by rolling dice, and once the encounters are complete, the woman is considered a member, though often not with the same status as male members. By embracing both male and female members and maintaining a rapid recruitment rate, the number of Tiny Rascal Gang members in Northern California grew to several thousand by the 2000s. With such a large membership, it became difficult for the gang to stick to their initial ways of making money, which primarily involved extortion, home invasions, robberies, burglaries, and auto thefts. As a result, they expanded their activities to include virtually any criminal action that could generate income for the gang, such as drug sales and assassinations. When it comes to drug sales, the Tiny Rascal Gang isn't selective about the types of drugs they sell. They deal in cocaine, fentanyl, methamphetamine, and any other designer drugs, which they either manufacture secretly or import from other countries. Regarding assassinations, the gang simply works for the highest bidders, though such jobs are not something they undertake frequently. Despite being large enough to operate independently, the Tiny Rascal Gang members do not hesitate to collaborate with other gangs when necessary. In the past, they've worked with the Asian Boys, another Southeastern Asian gang with significant influence in Northern Carolina, particularly when operations require access to each other's turf. Additionally, it's not uncommon for Tiny Rascal Gang members from different parts of a state, or even from out of state, to come together as a team to commit crimes. This inter- and intrastate cooperation has strengthened the gang's overall network and influence while making law enforcement investigations significantly more challenging. Still, the police have found some success in dealing with the activities of the gang over the years. Most recently, 7 men from the gang, based in Long Beach, who were involved in a Halloween party hit in 2019, will now head to trial on 3 counts of murder and 9 counts of attempted murder. Due to the nature of the killings and the disguises they used, it took a while for the police to prove their involvement. However, that has now been established, with the judge ruling that there is sufficient evidence to move the case forward. Also recently, 10 Stockton residents linked to the gang were arraigned on multiple firearm and automatic weapon charges. During their arrest, authorities seized 34 firearms, including assault weapons, automatic machine guns, and other illegally trafficked firearms. They also confiscated approximately 6 pounds of marijuana, a bulletproof vest, and $105,000 in suspected illegal proceeds. Beyond standard investigations, they've also repeatedly used gang injunctions to curtail Tiny Rascal Gang activities. This law prohibits targeted gang members from congregating in specific areas and thereby reduces the likelihood of them meeting to plan criminal activities. It also helps to create safer environments for residents living in those neighborhoods. An individual may receive this injunction based on various criteria, such as being identified as a gang member by a reliable informant or corroborated source, wearing gang-related clothing, or displaying gang symbols or hand signs. Other criteria include having identifiable gang tattoos, frequenting gang-controlled areas, associating with documented gang members, or being arrested with gang members for offences consistent with gang activity. When 2 of these criteria have been met, the police are not only authorised to issue the injunction, but can also arrest the individual if they are found defaulting. Just as the police work hard to curb the activities of the Tiny Rascal Gang, the state of California has also introduced several rules to help tackle the issue. These include banning cruising, loitering, disruptive public behaviour like firing weapons on private property, drinking alcohol in public, and playing loud music. The state has also taken steps to reduce graffiti and property damage by controlling the sale and use of vandalism materials and holding parents accountable for any damage caused by their children. Over time, these combined efforts have led to a reduction in the ranks of the Tiny Rascal Gang. However, the gang still exists today and remains as ruthless as ever. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed what you saw and want to catch more content like this, please hit the subscribe button so you can stay updated on our latest uploads. And don't forget to click the like button to let us know you loved the video. Your feedback means a lot to us, and we can't wait to share more exciting content with you.